So say you found a skeleton. How would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
All right, welcome to, well, I guess this is AiG Live about dinosaurs again. Let's talk. This isn't a regular show, but I just realized I forgot to turn my AC in this room off because I live in Arizona and it's really hot, so give me 1 second. There you go. That should calm down that noise. Sorry about that. First things first, we had a $5 super chat before we even started from Scott Duke, who says, looking forward to the video. Thank you very much, Scott Duke. I have today with me Tdlane. Tdlane, why don't you say hi to everybody?
Hi, I'm filling in for Erica today.
Yeah, unfortunately, normally this would have been our monthly Eric with Erica. However, Erica is moving, or I suppose she has moved, but she is still, you know, unpacking and getting things like internet set up. So, she could not make it because her internet is very unreliable and all she has basically is her phone. So, just said, no problem. We can always come up with something else. There's always more stuff. So, Tdlane found this little gem from AiG from like 3 days ago, or something like that.
It took like 5 minutes.
Yep.
From like September 1st. I just looked at AiG's YouTube.
Actually, Arizonasaurus, if I remember correctly, there is actually an Arizonasaurus, but I don't believe it's a dinosaur. There is one. I'm pretty sure it's a Crotalsalian. Yeah, it is. It's, so it is okay, it's not a Crotalsalian because I'm not allowed to say that anymore. Because now they're Pseudosuchians again. Ugh. Very annoying. But anyway, here, I'll bring up a picture of it.
Screw you. The nomenclature must change.
Well, the thing is that there is a definition for Crotalsalian, and it's no longer as specific as it once was because of how the shake-em-up came out with Phytosaurs. But there you go, there's Arizonasaurus. It is if I remember correctly, a mid-Triassic terrestrial predator. And there you go. It is a Pseudosuchian, the Arizonasaurus.
Very nice.
Yep. You can find it in basically large parts of Arizona and some parts of New Mexico, and places like the Painted Desert and stuff like that. There you go, Arizonasaurus. Anyway, so this is what is this video actually titled, Tdlane?
I do not remember.
Dinosaur Detective, separating fact from fiction. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right there. Goody.
So we're gonna do this in sort of the same style as we might do in Eric with Erica or Kent with Bent, but it's like noon here. I'm not drinking, so if you want to drink, feel free. I'm not gonna. So here we go. Let's hit play and see what happens. Screwed it up. There, now we go.
Fix it. I want to bring quick attention that Parasaurolophus head. It's an awful reconstruction.
Oh yeah, actually, before we even get started, I want to talk about that. So one, it's shrink wrapped, and I absolutely hate like you can see the entire outline of the inferior temporal fenestra. And it's just bad, and like the eye is really weird, and
that's not a good eye.
Yeah, and you can also see the entire outline of the orbit. And also, it pains me a little bit that the dinosaur on his projector is a Ceratosaurus.
Yeah.
It's also, look how far back the actual visible jaw goes. It goes to the very actual back of the bone. Like,
yeah, that's wrong. I
should not be able to draw a skull on top of your dinosaur face and have it be accurate. Like, soft tissue is a thing, guys.
Yes.
But all right, let's see what Buddy here has to say. And in case you don't know, Buddy, he's associated with AiG, and he for a while had a kids creationist paleontology thing where he and an anthropomorphic dinosaur would go on your paleontology digs. It was weird, but here we go.
Yeah. He's been covered by Potler before. It's a fun video. I suggest you watch it if you want to know more about Buddy Davis, but we're going to focus on this.
Yeah.
Workshop. I'm Buddy Davis, and I build a lot of the dinosaurs here
Hi, buddy.
The Creation Museum, and today we're going to talk about dinosaurs. So I hope you guys like dinosaurs, because that's what we're going to talk about. I call this the Dinosaur Detective.
Also, that's a Deinonychus skull. And I like the Deinonychus skull. I do not like the carving that he has next to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, sorry.
Separating fact from fiction, because there's a lot of misinformation about dinosaurs, and hopefully we can clear that up a bit and give God the glory for these wonderful animals that He created.
If I may, he should go take a look at the answers books first. Then
God, answers books. I should put those on. Can you even get those on Amazon? I should put them on my Amazon wish list. It'd be fun to go through.
They're being covered by RJ and Jackson.
I mean, that's true, but it would just be fun to have them to be able to look through. Although they're probably expensive, but at least they would be books rather than the stuff that Team Standing for Truth has been quote unquote publishing.
True.
They've got a big one up on that, in that they are, you know, they're like spelled correctly, and their sources, aren't hyperlinks. I mean, their sources don't support their contentions, but whatever. Let's get more Buddy in though.
So dinosaurs, separating fact from fiction. Now, why is it important to even talk about dinosaurs? Well, it's important what we believe. And here's why. Because dinosaurs are used more than any other animal to cause people to start believing in billions of years and in evolution. So that's why it's very important. So we either trust...
I mean, is it that, or is it just that because most of the dinosaurs people know about lived a long time ago, and dinosaurs are cool, those things... I mean... I don't think there's a propaganda arm of paleontology trying to get people to accept mainstream paleontology through the strategic use of dinosaurs.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that's not what's happening.
God's word.
Sorry.
It's one of those things where I just go, okay, whatever. That's literally just inconsequential propaganda rubbish.
Yeah.
Scientists say. So who's always been there? Has every scientist always been there? And the answer, of course, is no. Does every science know everything? And of course, the answer is no. Who knows everything? And the answer is God. Who's always been there? And the answer is God. So who should we always trust first, God or the scientist? And
the evidence. Let's trust the evidence first.
Yeah. Yes. The evidence. The evidence will always come first.
Right. Like, you don't have to trust scientists, but you should look at their papers and their publications and see if it stands up to scrutiny. And of course, if it's an area that you don't know enough to do that, then the consensus of the experts is probably what you should default to. But hey, maybe Buddy's interpretation of a book is actually right, and we'll be shown evidence of that.
I think it's hands down, we trust the word of the Lord. We trust God. Well, the Bible is the history book of the universe. Can we trust its history? Absolutely, we can trust its history. And so
look, there are sections in the Bible that are historical narrative for which there is some corroboration, right? So many of the names and places in the Bible are the names of people and places that are real, and many of the events, like various battles and wars and things like that, we know actually happened. We know that the conquest by the Babylonian Empire, followed by the Babylonian exile, like, we know that's a thing that happened. I guess that actually did occur. So,
yeah.
But is the Bible recording accurate literal history about the origin of the universe? No, we know that is not the case. It's not just that we don't know if the Bible is accurate about that. It's not literally recording the history of the universe. Or if it is, then it's just wrong. There's no way around it.
It's one of those things where when it's stated that the Bible's a history book, I'd say it has some history. It's some history of the Middle East in there, which is completely expected.
Right.
But it seems to basically be completely missing the Americas, East Asia, most of Africa, a good chunk of Europe.
Yep. It can be used as a history book for certain parts of the Near East and Middle East, and that's about it.
I will actually say it is useful if you for looking into what might have been around in the ancient Near East as far as important cities and nations go. But outside of that, as far as like history purposes go,
Yeah, it's a bit iffy, but here we go.
I'd like to say again, repeat with me, the Bible is what? The history book of the universe. And God's word tells me that he created all the land animals and people on day number 6. And dinosaurs were land animals. Now, he didn't say that, oh, a million years before that, I created another group of animals, did he? No, he made it very clear. He said on day 6, he created the land animals and he created people. So when would dinosaurs have been created?
According to this logic, on day 6. But
Yeah.
that's kind of stupid because we know that's not what happened. But maybe Buddy will go past just telling us what the Bible says and how he interprets that.
No, the Bible
Day
says
number
so.
6, right along with Adam and Eve. And here's why I like to do these talks, because I think it's important, especially in the world that we're living today, that we can defend our faith. And the Bible tells us in First.
Dread Lindworm, sorry, asks, is that Genesis 1 or Genesis 2? So Genesis 1 is the one that gives you the account of each day that's numbered. So that would have been in Genesis 1. Then in Genesis 2, it starts off with before any herbs had sprouted or something in the garden. You know, God created man, and then he had all the animals come before Adam, and he named them, and then, which would have been a very long day, but then he put Adam to sleep. All that stuff is in Genesis 2. 1
Peter 3:15, but sanctify the Lord God in your hearts, and be ready always to give an answer to every man that asks you for a reason of the hope that is placed within you with meekness and fear. So that's what we're going to do today, is learn how to defend our faith in these issues. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
The thing is that nothing about dinosaurs need be a challenge to Christianity, nor does anything in Christianity really have anything to do with dinosaurs, except for the times that birds are mentioned in the Bible.
Yeah, it's basically completely inconsequential. They don't have anything to do with one another.
Yeah. So I don't... It's such a weird thing. It's just like... Only... Very few people would say that the dinosaurs are a major aspect of their religion. Like, come on. You know what? Maybe we should just start a dinosaur religion.
Yes.
All right.
I agree with this.
All right, let's start it. Guys, we're going to start a dinosaur religion.
We should call it, I don't know. It's called Dinosaurism, and it has its own sects,
Wait,
like Pharaohism.
You don't just create sects. Sects come about naturally. If you build them in, then it's very obvious that your religion was just made up for funsies. This is a serious endeavor, Tdlane.
Crap! I thought we were being Scientologists.
Well, actually, even Scientology has sects, but they came about naturally.
Oh,
Yeah.
fair.
Facts are the same, whether you're an evolutionist. Did you know that? Whether you're an evolutionist or whether you're a creationist like I am, we have the same set of facts to go by. It's how you interpret the facts, and a lot of times it's what you're presented with first is what really puts in your mind what the truth is. So,
Can I just say?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So the facts are the same. The problem is creationists outright deny massive amounts of the facts.
Mm-hmm.
And their interpretation of artifacts is completely wrong.
Yep. Yeah, basically. Oh goodness, I did it again.
Yeah, when you outright reject anything that goes against your position and misinterpret large amounts of our bits and just ignore portions that you know.
Oh, you know what it is? Sorry, hold up. I just figured out what it is. I have this video full screen, and then whenever I click on, like, say, my OBS window, it just minimizes because it's like, oh, I'm not in full screen anymore. I hate that. Sorry about that, guys. This is the dangers of producing and only having 2 screens and whatnot. But yeah, it's true that creationists have to reject and just ignore huge swaths of the data field that just can't explain all of it. And even the parts that they do touch on, sure, they have a different interpretation, but it's an interpretation that doesn't actually make any sense, like the global flood. You cannot use the global flood to explain geology. We're seeing that in my series, Creationism is a mega catastrophe right now. Two more episodes, so there you go. But let's get in a little bit more, buddy.
We need to examine that a little bit. And here's what I mean. If I would show you this picture right here, and I didn't say anything other than what are you looking at? Probably most of you would say, well, that's easy. That's a dinosaur. And some of you probably even know what kind of dinosaur that would be. You'd probably tell me, that's a Triceratops dinosaur.
I mean, it's obviously a cartoon of a Triceratops, but honestly, it doesn't look all that much like a real Triceratops.
No, it's a cartoon, and it's recognizable as such, but it doesn't really look much like a real one.
Oh, you know what? William Grigg says, want to take a minute to look at that Dilophosaurus? I can
Also,
scan back a
Ben
little bit.
Opened is in the chat.
What up, Bent?
Yo.
Bent's looking good with that top hat badge right there. Look at that. All right, so this, yeah, this Dilophosaurus is a little rough. So we got a few things. So let's see. The hands are obviously broken. That hand is no good. Now I can't criticize the crest or the anterior portions of the head too much because those are things that we've only recently found good specimens for. So yeah, there's some parts of the top of the skull that are a little iffy, but
yeah. The thing is, though, it's done on what, September 1st?
Yeah, but this is probably a picture that he just took of some statue that he made like 20 years ago or something.
True.
So I can't, like, when you're criticizing paleo art, you have to try to remember about when it was probably made. And my guess is that Buddy didn't jump out the minute that new paper came out and sculpt a new Dilophosaurus. And he shouldn't really be expected to. Like, but I will say that Buddy is firmly stuck in like the 1970s when it comes to his dinosaur reconstructions. He has completely ignored the entirety of the dinosaur renaissance, which is kind of important for him because AiG's idea about dinosaurs basically has not been affected by the dinosaur renaissance. Which, in case you guys don't know, in sort of the mid-80s out into like the mid-90s, there's this thing called the dinosaur renaissance. And the idea was that scientists were learning that dinosaurs were probably warm-blooded and very active, and that they were much more like birds than they are like lizards. And so there was an update of a lot of reconstructions, and that's when, you know, the reconstruction for theropods went from sort of being like kangaroo stance down to being more like a bird with the spine more or less parallel to the ground and the you know, the nice S-curve on the neck and whatnot. Whereas this, I mean, this neck doesn't even have an S-curve, and there's no feathers. Although, so feathers, we don't know if Dilophosaurus had extensive plumage, but it's, if you do phylogenetic bracketing, there's no reason to say that it wouldn't have had feathers.
And
now
how large was Dilophosaurus again?
Dilophosaurus was, I mean, it's much bigger than the Jurassic Park. It was about 1.5 meters tall or so.
Oh, it's within like a area where it could possibly be feathered.
Yeah.
No,
it's also a very early dinosaur. We're talking early Jurassic, and it's very near the base of the theropod family tree, and so it would probably have had very simple feathers, kind of like probably just bristles or simple hollow strands. Yeah, basically.
What was I gonna say? Yeah, what? Oh, I remember. What, like, if you want to like see more about the dinosaur renaissance stuff, I'd suggest getting a book from the 70s, Dinosaurs in the 70s. Get another book, like I'm talking art books kind of thing. Get another one from the 80s, and get one from the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And see how it kind of changes for that.
Yeah. Another thing that I noticed with not just this picture, but I've seen a few other Buddy Davis is his name, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. But other Buddy Davis reconstructions. I'm just going to assume that this is his work. It kind of looks like his work. But he's got the skull, or not the skull, sorry, the jaw visibly going all the way back to where basically the articular and the syringular bones would be. And it's just like, there's no reason to think that that's reasonable. That's not how modern reptile jaws work. Even crocodilians, who you think of as having these gigantic jaws where the mouth just goes all the way back, even that, you cannot actually see on a living specimen the exact point of articulation between the cranium and the jaw. It's just, no.
It's a scaly monsters kind of thing, and I don't like it.
Yeah. But we're gonna
like animals, not.
We're gonna jump ahead 30 seconds, and oh hey, look, he flipped the Triceratops upside down, and now it still looks like an upside down Triceratops. But I guess we're gonna see what he says about it.
The same picture, but it's presented on how you present it first, on what you see first. And a lot of times that's what is put in your mind as to what you believe. But the facts haven't changed, so we need to search for the truth.
So is he going with this is? I guess he's gonna go with it like it's a chicken, except that it looks even less like a chicken than it does like a triceratops.
Yeah. It's like, oh, you can present, depending on how you present the facts, you can make it seem different. Yeah, you can, but when you actually look into it, oh, hey, look.
Yeah, and of course...
You're wrong.
Oh, and Illuminati says, I've been talking to a guy... Oh, and hey, Paleontologic, thank you for talking about it. But Illuminati Don says, I've been talking to a guy that thinks a frilled dragon, which is a lizard, and the Dilophosaurus are the same animal. I mean... My goodness, they're not even vaguely similar. The only connection is that in a movie that badly portrayed Dilophosaurus, it had a neck frill. There's no reason to think the animal actually had such a thing. But yeah. So and Dreadlin Worm says, so everything has cheeks. Basically, so when you think of mammal cheeks, they're these muscular things where you can, purse with your lips and they can be drawn back and stuff. Most animals don't have that. That's actually a mammalian adaptation for suckling as an infant. So most mammals, basically all the mammals except for monotremes, have nipples. And in order to get the milk from the nipple, the young has to be able to latch. Which, if you've ever breastfed or known someone who has been breastfeeding, that can be a challenge for humans because humans are born rather underdeveloped compared to most mammals. Not compared to marsupials, but compared to most placental mammals. And so that kind of mammal cheek is an adaptation to being able to do that. That's also why mammals can use straws. Dinosaurs couldn't have used straws because they couldn't create an airtight seal and then produce additional suction like that. They couldn't have pursed their lips around anything. If they had lips, it would have just been a sort of bands of cartilage around the edge of the teeth that are just there to protect the teeth. But
look at Eric's most recent message in chat.
Oh my goodness, Logan Paul's Flat. I actually saw Logan Paul's Flat Earth movie. Remind me, man. That could be fun. I actually kind of like Logan Paul. It's literally the only thing of Logan Paul's that I've ever actually sat down and watched. The only other experience I have with Logan Paul is like clips that other people have played from his stuff while either basically criticizing him. Like, I was aware of the whole, like, when he went to Suicide Forest. Oh, man, demonetized. Anyway, so, yeah, basically everything has some kind of tissue around its jaw so that things don't basically just fall out of its mouth all the time. This Parasaurolophus over here the jaw is not actually too bad. So, he's got, this looks like a jaw muscle, which would be wrong, but ignoring that, like, there's this fleshy sheath over the teeth that would have prevented plant matter from falling out of the sides while it was chewing. So, here we go.
What this creature would be. So what is a dinosaur anyway?
Ooh, well, I know the answer to this one. Let's see what he's... Actually, I'll bet he'll give a not wrong, but insufficient answer.
Yeah.
Dinosaurs were land animals. They lived on the land. Where did dinosaurs live? Yep, they lived on the land. They were
not really an answer to the question, what is a dinosaur?
Yeah, also, laughs in Spinosaurus.
Well, yeah. I mean, Spinosaurus probably wasn't fully aquatic, but it did have a lot of time in the water. So,
penguins as well.
Well, let's keep it to... We'll stick with Mesozoic dinosaurs, just to be generous. But yeah, it's a weird thing. It's like asking, okay, what is a cow? It's like, well, it doesn't live underwater. I'm like, okay, but it doesn't really help me. Like, I guess it cuts out a few things, but all right, let's see what else he's got.
And animals. They were not pterodactyls. Pterodactyls are flyers. They would fly. And they're not creatures like plesiosaurs that would swim in the waters. They were swimmers. Dinosaurs lived on the land. Now,
first, pterosaurs, not pterodactyls, for the entire group name. Secondly, he can better define dinosaurs than Kent Hovind.
Yeah, that's true.
Probably would consider pterosaurs and plesiosaurs dinosaurs.
Actually, I happen to know that he considers mosasaurs and plesiosaurs and pterosaurs all dinosaurs.
Buddy Davis is better at dinosaurs than Kent Hovind.
You literally cannot be worse at dinosaurs than Kent Hovind.
Not without denying they exist.
No, because then you're just innocent of the whole thing. You're not anything on dinosaurs. Once you know that dinosaurs exist, or were a thing, you're at the same level as Canthovent. Once you learn any additional facts about dinosaurs as a group, you have gone past Canthovent.
I mean the people that say dinosaurs aren't real and reject it and say all fossils of dinosaurs are basically fakes.
I'd say they're about at the same level of knowledge about dinosaurs, but they're more wrong about some aspects of them.
Yeah.
But here we go.
Now, of course, dinosaurs, as he come up against a river, if he wanted to go...
Oh, yeah, that's true. Ken Hovind also thinks that Basilosaurus is a dinosaur.
It's a whale.
It says Saurus at the end, though.
It's a whale.
Ugh.
Names don't
swim
always
in a lake. I imagine he would do that with no problem. But technically, they lived on the land. They were land animals. So if you ask most scientists, that's what they're going to tell you about dinosaurs. And they walked with their legs directly underneath their body, just how I'm standing. Right, like this, with my legs directly underneath my body. Not sprawl-legged like a lizard. A lot of lizards are sprawl-legged, like a crocodile or an alligator. They walk like this, they're sprawl-legged.
Well, it's a little bit iffy on the crocodile or alligator, because the default mode of terrestrial locomotion for crocodilians is actually called the high walk, where they actually do bring their legs directly under the body. So it's a little there, but it is true that dinosaurs did all have columnar or vertical legs, and not sprawling.
It's one of those things where it goes like, basal archosaurs might have just been able to do a high walk.
No, they were. Yeah,
it's like.
But the problem is that his
already transitional.
His definition of terrestrial, and we'll say reptiles, he didn't, but we'll just add it in there. So his definition of terrestrial reptiles with limbs under the body rather than sprawling actually basically is archosaur.
Yep.
So that one of the problems is that he has not actually sufficiently defined dinosaur so that we can tell that, say, like the Arizonosaurus that we showed before, which is not a dinosaur. We can't tell if that's a dinosaur based on his definition. So under this guy's definition, crocodilians, all the pseudotsuchians, all the dinosauromorphs, basically every archosaur that isn't a pterosaur, or a bird, I guess, since he's defined it as being terrestrial, is a dinosaur.
Wait. What about ostriches?
Actually, I suppose ostriches under his definition could be dinosaurs. I'm sure
bird that can't fly would be a dinosaur.
Yeah, it's a very, very dumbed down and inadequate definition so far, but maybe he'll get better.
Worse yet,
Dinosaurs did not
fly very much is a dinosaur.
Yeah.
Walk like that. They walked with their legs directly under their body.
Oh,
now
that's an even worse reconstruction. Is that the same? Oh, it might actually be the same one, but I don't. Oh, okay. So
the color is different.
Yeah, but then again, that could just be the weird light. I don't know. The shape of the mouth looks the same, but now I can see the actual shadow of an outline of an antorbital fenestra. Please stop doing that, paleo artists. I just look at a modern animal, any modern animal. Let's say a reptile now. Let's stick with reptiles, right? And so if you take a look at a snake or a lizard or a tuatara or a turtle or something, just looking at its head will not tell you the exact shape of its skull. There's no reason that other dinosaurs would have had, or that dinosaurs would have had basically no soft tissue, no fat, no real cartilage, just skin slapped over bone. It's not a reasonable reconstruction. Stop it.
If it'd be a four-legged dinosaur, it would stand like a horse would stand.
The phylogenetic definition of what a dinosaur is. So, there are a few. One that's popular is that dinosaurs, the clade Dinosauria encompasses Megalosaurus and Iguanodon, their most recent common ancestor, and all of its descendants. I also have heard dinosaur defined in terms of Tyrannosaurus and Triceratops, using the same, it's their common ancestor and all of its descendants, as well as Triceratops and Passer, which is the house sparrow. Passer domesticus is the house sparrow. All of those result in the same group of animals, so it doesn't really matter which of them you pick. But those have been the three that I am familiar with. There are also anatomical definitions, but that all, again, result in about the same animals. So it's, yeah, that is usually the three answers that I get when I'm looking for a phylogenetic definition in terms of, like, the clade defined by this animal and this animal, its most recent common ancestor and descendants.
That mouth is so awful.
Oh, it is. But I want to point out, though, that if Ornithoscelida is correct, if that hypothesis is correct, and sauropods branch actually basally to both ornithischians and theropods, then all of those definitions would actually make sauropods fall outside of Dinosauria. So either someone would have to redefine Dinosauria, which is not normally allowed, or sauropods simply wouldn't be dinosaurs anymore.
Yeah.
So, here you go.
Not like a crocodile, or maybe a dog, or a cow, or something like that, with their legs directly underneath their bodies. And we have two different groups of dinosaurs. We have what's called the bird hip dinosaur and the lizard hip dinosaur. So there's two different categories of dinosaurs. All right?
Probably true, but like I said, Ornithoscelida might throw a wrench in that works, but right now, it is not sufficiently well supported for me to feel like I'm going to just go with it.
Yeah.
I don't have a strong preference for or against it. However, until more studies start resolving the same family tree at the base of Dinosauria, I'm sticking with the Ornithischian, Saurischian groupings.
Now, some scientists believe that birds are modern-day dinosaurs. Yep, you heard me right. You know, years ago when I used to tell people that...
Keep that in mind.
Yep.
It's most paleontologists. So,
it's basically anyone who knows what a dinosaur is and what a bird is with any kind of detail. Like, if you can walk into a college course on paleontology and correctly define dinosaur, and then walk into, Ornithology 101 and correctly define a bird, you have enough information to know for a fact that birds are dinosaurs.
Yeah, basically what you have for people that say they aren't is basically Alan Fiducia and the people around him.
Uh-huh.
And they've basically been laughed out because at this point they're saying anything with feathers is a bird.
Yeah, so Velociraptor is a bird. Basically,
Tyrannosaurus is a bird.
A huge swath of late Cretaceous theropods are just birds now, according to Alan Fiducia, which is
it's ridiculous.
Anyway, but these are the best dinosaurs we've seen so far.
Yeah, pretty nice.
Is that a grebe?
Might be.
I don't know. Hey, in the chat, let me know what that bird is, because I'm not a bird spotter.
They would laugh when I'd say that. They're not laughing today because they presented with, like that first picture that I showed you, they've always been hearing for the last probably 20 years that birds are dinosaurs. And they don't laugh anymore because a lot of people have even bought into that. I don't believe that at all. Birds have nothing to do with dinosaurs. There's one paleontologist who ended his book and said the next time you see the geese flying overhead, you can say the dinosaurs are migrating. That's what he said. And then I was at a dinosaur symposium a number of years ago, and it was full of a lot of people who believed in evolution. They were there studying about dinosaurs, and one of the speakers got up. He says, "Tonight, ladies and gentlemen," he says, "after our talks are all over, we're going to serve you dinosaurs for dinner." People looked at one another and thought, well, I wonder what this is about. You know what they served? They served chicken. I kid you not, that's what it was. And because they believe that birds...
Apparently it was a loon. Is he still alive, Alan Fiducia?
Yes.
So as far as I know, he is. I know someone who is very convinced that he's dead, but his word is insufficient, and I've yet to find any source claiming that he has died. So as far as I know, he is alive. I believe he's pretty much retired, though. So...
also, Henry Hansen said a thing in chat that isn't technically correct.
Well, so it's a little complicated with pterosaurs and the feathers. So pterosaurs we know had filamentous integument, which basically means hair-like or, strand-like. They also, we have good evidence that they had some complex branching patterns that are similar to some protofeathers. However, to what degree feathers and pycnofibers, which is what the covering on pterosaurs, to what degree they're homologous is actually still up in the air. It's entirely possible that they are in fact homologous and that pycnofibers are essentially just a different form of protofeather. That is not necessarily the case, though, so we need to be cautious.
Yeah, saying they are feathers is a little bit too far. We don't have the evidence to suggest that at the moment.
Yeah. Also, yes, this chicken is also a very inaccurate chicken. Come on,
Yes.
buddy, get better.
If only we had living pterosaurs.
That would be nice. The closest thing we've got is birds, and they're not that close. But here we go.
Birds are modern-day dinosaurs. I don't believe that at all. My good friend Dr. David Minton.
I agree. It is impossible for a Tyrannosaurus Rex to jump and turn into a robin. Or a cardinal.
No,
yes. Oh, God. We're going to get into David Minton here. Here we go.
Who's an expert in this field,
tells me that
it is impossible for a feather to turn into a scale. And
what? It's impossible for a feather to turn into a scale?
Or vice versa, I guess. But the problem is that we've done this.
I mean, bird scales are feathers. In fact, most dinosaur scales were probably feathers, in fact. So most dinosaur scales are what's called reticulae. They're these tiny little round scales, and they're found all across the skin in areas where dinosaurs didn't have feathers for the most part. We have a lot of skin impressions of these reticulae. But the thing is that they're morphologically basically identical to the tiny little round scales that you get on the bottoms of, say, a bird's foot. But we also know that those things are actually feathers. They're actually feathers that they basically are stunted feathers. They have the same origin as feathers. They have the same chemistry as feathers. They're controlled by the same genes as feathers. They are feathers.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
And all it really takes... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I believe it would be SHH, or Sonic Hedgehog, controls those as well, which in mammals is partly responsible for our dentary squamosal jaw. Weird what it does differently in different animals.
Yeah. So, the thing is that basically the only difference between a feather and a scale at the beginning is essentially that the signaling pattern of Sonic Hedgehog changes a little bit in birds, and so rather than a simple hardened bump, a ring is formed, and then that starts to grow out a feather because it starts as a ring shape. And then if you actually if you've ever raised birds or seen birds that are growing from largely featherless chicks, they have this stage where their feathers are in a sheath, and that's because the feather actually has to grow in that radial fashion, and the sheath helps protect it while it's growing out of the bird, and then the sheath drops and the feather unfolds. So if you've ever bred birds or anything, like some people breed like parakeets or something like that, you'll notice this stage in feather development. It's because of the way it grows out of the follicle. And so, yeah.
A question from chat, from William Grick. Please let us know on how that's pronounced. Why don't mammals have scales?
Well, so you could make the argument that some of them do. Some rodent tails have hardened formations that are basically scales.
I believe the proper name for them would be scutes, but they are very similar, basically. So, basically, mammals have hair, and hair has been very advantageous in a lot of ways, and there is not much reason to have both hair and scales. And also, hair actually develops embryologically from the same structures that scales develop from. So hairs are basically just another kind of really weird scale. So yeah, from what we can basically tell is Therapsids lost their scales and basically had them replaced with hair.
Yeah,
the hair.
Basically.
Yeah. And another thing to note is that synapsids generally had more leathery skin than reptiles. They more like us.
Yeah. Another thing is also mammals have very glandular skin. That's why mammals can do things like sweat and get like oily substances that they secrete onto their hairs and stuff to keep the hair from matting and stuff like that. And it is it's difficult to have heavy scale covering as well as glands that are actually useful. So that's another big reason.
I think actually in a way you could look at this as like diapsids and some early synapsids took the more scaly approach, while the synapsids that led to therapsids went more in a glandular way.
Okay.
Because that seems to be a trait of losing scale seems to be more ancestral to that group.
Yeah. All right, but then again, we do also have diapsids without scales. For instance, we know that ichthyosaurs had skin that was more like a dolphin than it is like a lizard. So,
I wonder why.
Yeah, here we go.
He studies these things, and I agree with him 100%. Now, this is a sculpture that I did. I built life-size dinosaurs, and this is one of the famous dinosaurs, Velociraptor. And you can see how I built my dinosaur right here.
Yeah, I can see how you built your dinosaur with broken wrists. I mean, every single knob on the skull is visible, and I know because on my shelf in the other room I have a life-size Velociraptor skull.
I want it.
Well, have Beethoven as your friend on your birthday, and maybe he'll give you one. Because that's how I got it.
Should I throw you my wish list so you can throw it in the description? Because I want that skull eventually. I just can't afford it right now.
Look, if you want to put your Amazon wish list in the description, yeah, toss it to me sometime and I'll put it in there. But anyway, yeah, this is a really, really bad reconstruction. And I want to know if he's actually going to double down on this reconstruction. Because here's the thing. He mentioned... who's that guy? Menton. Dr. Menton. By the way, Dr. Menton is a doctor, but he's a medical doctor. He is not a paleontologist. He's not a scientist. He's Dr. Menton, MD. So, now this is not to, like, poo-poo the importance of MDs and how difficult it is to get a medical degree. However, it's not the kind of doctor that you use for clout when talking about paleontology. But anyway, Dr. Menton actually was on stage at the Creation Museum about 2 months ago, I think, saying the Velociraptor was a bird.
Yep.
He went full fiducia and said that velociraptors were birds. So I want to know if Buddy here is going to double down on this reconstruction, because if he does, it means AiG can't agree with themselves about Velociraptor.
And you directly citing somebody and you don't actually agree with them on what they directly say.
Right.
One has to wonder what your model even is.
Yep, Ugly German Truth says the one that Aaron Rod just did his 10-part Birds Dino series on. Yep, that is the exact same one. And actually, here's a fun thing that you won't get if you watch his 10-part series, but that you could get if you go to the original. I was live debunking it in the live chat when it aired, because it was a live stream. So if you watch it...
That's another question.
Oh, sorry.
Were these stunted feathers the ancestral condition? They later became feathers, but some spots stayed scales, or is this a derived state they used to be feathers?
So what's probably the case, and this is not backed by much data, this is mostly backed on sort of like embryological kind of things. The first feathering probably was more or less body-wide. Either there just was no integument structures like feathers or scales, or it was just feathers. And then, because that's the sort of biologically simpler thing. And we can actually get similar conditions in birds today. There are a number of breeds of chicken that don't have foot scales. Instead, they just have feathers. And essentially, they just don't have scales at all. And they actually just have feathers on their feet. Which actually led to the prediction of animals like Microraptor that had hind leg wings. So then what probably happened shortly after that is that there was the ability gained to stunt scale growth in certain areas, or stunt feather growth in certain areas, basically, to recover a scaly like morphology, if not actually having the same genetic basis as the original scales. Now, we don't have, like I said, we don't have fossils for that. That's all just inference based on things like embryology and how we know that feathers can be actually affected by mutations and stuff. So I cannot say for certain that that's what happened. But that is a reasonable guess. I would say, I don't even know how we would test it, but that is the reasonable presumption at this point.
From William Reich, I think suggests feathers are going to be found to be homologous with hair. No.
Well, kind of though. That's the thing. They're not homologous as filamentous structures, but you got to remember, if you go back far enough, they both derive from the same scales.
Yeah, they derive from the same scales, but as structures, they aren't really homologous.
Yeah.
You could say they are both derived states of a shared homologous structure.
Yeah. So it's kind of like
that I would accept.
So it's sort of like is a pterosaur wing homologous to a bird wing? Yes and no. They're analogous as wings, but they're homologous as forelimbs.
Yes.
The common ancestor of both pterosaurs and birds had 4 limbs with, carpals, metacarpals, a radius and an ulna, all that stuff. And so they carried that basic 4-limb structure along both lines, but they also evolved separately as wings, which is why their actual airfoil and how they actually, flapped and all this, very different. So feathers and hair are homologous at a very basic level as a thing on the skin. They both evolved from scales. They separately evolved into filament-like structures. So there you go. Let's get a little bit more in.
Yeah.
But if you go to museums today, many museums are showing Velociraptor. He looks like this.
Actually, that is insufficient feathering.
That's insufficient feathering. Like this was done in 2020. Keep that in mind. Nowadays, when you look at a Velociraptor reconstruction, actually, you know what? I'm gonna go grab one and throw it over to you, real quick.
Where are you sending it to me? Because I don't have much open.
Probably Discord.
Can you just DM it to me? Because I can probably get that more easily. Sorry. So, yeah. Also, this is a very shrink-wrapped example, which I am not a huge fan of. Stop shrink-wrapping your dinosaurs, people. We're going to get a little bit more in while Tdlane grabs a Velociraptor reconstruction to share with us.
And you take thousands of boys and girls going through these museums, and they see wonderful-looking models. It looks very good. It's really well sculptured, and they see those feathers on it. They don't stop and think, what's the evidence? They think, well, this has always been proven. This is what they're finding. Have they ever found anything that looks like this? And the answer is a great big no. They have not. And so dinosaurs...
$4.99 US from Mr. Archaeopteryx. Keep it up. Thank you very much. That is the intention, is to keep it up. And hey, you guys, if I wanted to go get a burger now, you guys have paid for me to get a burger. Thanks. That's how I like to measure my super chats, is what kind of meal could I have purchased with the super chats. So the thing is that Dr. Menton, who was on the same stage, as I've said before, actually says that this is the right interpretation. And Buddy here is going the other direction. AiG can't even keep its people on track. I don't know if they're backpedaling. I don't know. This is crazy.
Dinosaurs and birds are birds. Dinosaurs were created on what day did I say? Day number 6. What day did God create the birds on? On day number 5. That's when God created the birds, so they're not...
Okay, but here's the thing about the day 5 versus day 6, right? Creationists don't generally object to whales being mammals. But most mammals would have been created on day 6 according to the Genesis 1 narrative, whereas all the air and water-dwelling creatures would have been created on day 5.
All right, so, I sent the picture to you.
Okay. I will pull that up. Oh yes, that's very nice.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's by one of my my favorite paleo artists.
Yeah.
So here
Gabriel
we go.
And you, I can't pronounce his last name.
Yeah, I can't.
So I'm not going to bother. He's on Twitter. Go follow him.
So yeah, this is
paleo art.
Gabriel Uguedo? I don't know, man. Sorry. But
I do not speak Spanish.
I speak a little bit of Spanish. Actually, I understand a fair bit of Spanish. I can usually read Spanish well enough to know what's going on, but yeah, my ability to speak Spanish is fairly limited. But yes, this is a much more modern and likely take on Velociraptor. And one of the things that you should notice is that there's feathers on the feet. And that's for the same reasons that we talked about. That is the primitive condition for avialans and other paravians and such. So that is actually even more accurate than having the sort of like emu-like scales that people like to put on their a lot of their dinosaurs. Now that might work for dinosaurs that probably weren't feathered. Like Tyrannosaurus Rex probably either had very little or no feathers, so that is reasonable to reconstruct there. But then if you go to things like Ceratosaurus or Allosauroids and or things like Majungasaurus and other Abelisaurs, then they probably didn't have that kind of like emu type scale where you get the big scales on the top going down the metatarsals and then spreading out onto the phalanges on the top side of the foot. Probably not. Also, what do you mean when you say shrink-wrapped? Okay, we will take a look at this dinosaur. Okay, so shrink-wrapped is a term that comes up in paleo art a lot for dinosaurs. And if you look at this, and then I say pull up a velociraptor skull. So we've got this, and let's pull up a velociraptor skull, make sure it's not one from... oh, this is the one I actually own. Okay, we'll use that one. So, come on. There we go. So this is a velociraptor skull. Now, in that, you can see that there are a number of fenestrae and other openings. So we've got the orbit here. Let me make sure I can see the live chat. We've got the orbit here. We've got the anterorbital fenestra. We've got this little guy. I can never remember the name of that thing off the top of my head, but it's the maxillary. Whatever. I can't remember it. I have to look it up every time. I've looked up the name of that fenestra like probably 40 or 50 times. It just never sticks in my brain. Oh, we've got the mandibular fenestra down here. We've got the cerangular fenestra. We've got the inferior and superior temporal fenestrae. The nares. Well, actually, that's not the actual nares. That's just the nostril opening, but it's the bony version of the fleshy nares. Okay, so, and then we take a look at this reconstruction, and you can see every single one of these openings. Like, here's the bony outline of the orbit. Here's the bony outline of the mandibular fenestra. I don't see a bony outline for the cerangular fenestra, but whatever. I mean, the nasal opening, okay, that's fair, because fleshy coverings for the nares are going to vary highly. So they could have just been big and basically taken up the whole bony section. Although what's more typical in modern animals is actually that the fleshy opening is only a small part. And humans are very unusual in that they have these big cartilaginous proboscis hanging down for some stupid reason. But, yeah, so shrink wrapping is when basically you just put skin over the bone and nothing else. And you can see the outline of the entire skull. And it's not very likely to have been accurate. There's also a thing that has gone around. So there's this book called All Our Yesterdays, yes. And then there was another follow-up that was called All Our Tomorrows. And this was taking a look at paleo art and tropes in paleo art and applying either different tropes or applying the tropes of paleo art to modern animals. So it's...
another note is that one of the points was what would a alien in the far future make out of of like mammals or like current animals if they only had the fossils?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, it turned out shrink wrapped.
So I'll show you. I'm going to see if I can't get a shrink-wrapped animal.
Yeah, like it is difficult to find soft tissue because
Okay, yeah, here we go. So,
but
I'll pull this over here. So we've got stuff like, okay, this is a hippo that has been shrink-wrapped in the style of many paleo artists. Hey, Aztec Dragon, welcome to the chat. So here we've got a mammoth, a rhino, and a horse, all done in sort of the shrink-wrapped style of a lot of paleo art. Let's see. We've also got these swans, which are just horrifying. This is a baboon. So this is what I mean by shrink-wrapped.
Yeah, like as I was saying, like except for like really good circumstances, like for example, there's like a hadrosaur, I forget which genus, but that basically had mummified before it fossilized, so we have an extremely good idea of the extent of soft tissue in that one.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, bog bodies, they're amazing, especially if they fossilize.
So this right here, we've got a shoe-billed stork and a more general stork, and yeah, it's just so that's what I mean by shrink wrapping. So yeah,
these shall haunt my nightmares.
I know, they're terrible, and that's the thing. That is just as this velociraptor face, which actually that looks more like a Deinonychus, or actually doesn't even look all that much like a Deinonychus. Is that
generic dromaeosaur?
It could be a Utah raptor from before the anterior tip of the
yeah, Neslick, I'm waiting for us to
Dentary.
be done with this.
Anyway, here we go.
So, but before we get to Neslick has another question follow up.
Go ahead.
Didn't they also induce fair development, quote unquote, in skin placodes of crocodilians? And
they did, yeah.
Did fair count as a violation of Dolo's law?
Let's see. I'm not sure if it would count as a violation of Dolo's law. I would have to double check. But yes, there is actually there has been some paper done on turning crocodilian scales into basically proto-feathers. So as far as Dolo's law, so we know that feathers can be stunted into scales. So Dolo's law basically is saying that you can't really recover an old form. And it is a general fact about evolution. Like, snakes are never going to get their legs back again, at least not as fully functional limbs. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to.
Birds probably aren't going to be unfusing their fingers anytime soon.
Right. But in small areas, it actually is possible to get older forms. Basically, like we know about atavisms that occur. Like, sometimes you'll get actual full hind limbs developed on whales. Or
yeah, and in with feather development, it's extremely easy because it's basically just a point mutation.
Yeah, so I would say, first, Dolo's law is not a law that's like as strict to say the law of monophyly, right? But it is generally not. I mean, you could call it a violation, but the other thing is that these stunted scales, or these stunted feathers that look like scales, also are not morphologically identical to, say, like a lepidosaur scale, right? So, like, if you look at a lizard scale or a snake scale, the stunted reticulae of birds are not the same structure. They're chemically distinct, they're biologically distinct, they're controlled by genes in a distinct manner, so it's sort of a superficial return to an earlier form.
A note for William Greich's comment. Generic dromaeosaur, excuse me, that's not a genus. It's basically to say it's a dromaeosaur. It's designed to be a dromaeosaur, but not a specific genus or species.
Actually, I wouldn't be too surprised if this was intended to be like a Utah raptor.
Yeah.
One of the things about Utah raptor is that it's kind of hard to tell because we don't have a lot of great skull material for Utah raptor, so it sort of gets the generic dromaeosaur look, which then tends to be like, make it kind of look like Jurassic Park. Okay.
Yeah.
But
we now know its jaw is significantly weird.
Yeah.
That's
related
about it.
At all. This is from a quote from a famous paleontologist, and here's what he said. In spite of some paleontologists...
Drink. It's Alan Fiducia.
Yeah.
Whoever said that the probability of Alan Fiducia being 1 earlier, congratulations, you get a cookie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, it's true. Anytime dinosaurs and birds are brought up by creationists, they're going to cite Alan Fiducia. And we've already gone over him in this stream, so I don't feel like harping on him too much, but yeah, he is basically a pariah when it comes to paleontology, because he refuses to accept evidence and simply holds to his idea.
You've seen Jackson Wheatley's video. We watched it together, actually.
Yep. What was it, like 4 minutes after it came out?
This is in 2020. He is citing Fiducia from 1999.
Mm-hmm.
Ignoring everything that came after, because Fiducia basically continued on to give away points and ultimately went to all fair dinosaurs are birds.
Yep.
Congratulations, nice. Like, you get a cookie.
So Aztec Dragon says, do you think that we could bring back dinosaurs by genetic engineering from birds and alligators? We could probably get something that was morphologically similar to a sort of basal theropod by doing that, but it would not actually be any dinosaur that was already extinct.
I would also like to say there are ethical issues with the Geochronology, which Trey the Explainer covered.
Yeah. From a technical standpoint, could you create an organism that looked like people's idea of a dinosaur? Yes, probably. Would it be any of those animals? No. It would still just basically be a bird.
Yeah.
Which is a dinosaur. I mean, a bird is no less a dinosaur than Triceratops is.
Just desperate pleads for us to accept through faith The dinosaur and origin of avian flight, the details of the origin of birds remains elusive after more than 150 years. And here's what he's saying. Guys, it's impossible for birds to turn into the dinosaurs. That's what he is actually saying here in this.
Yeah, and he's the only one saying it.
Yeah.
For good reason.
Quote.
Yeah.
Now, it'd be easier to get a pig to fly than what it would be to get a dinosaur to fly. But a lot of people say, well, wait a minute, Buddy Davis. Now, you're getting a little ahead of yourself. Look at the...
Actually, there are a number of dinosaurian features already featured here, including the 3-digit hand. You've got the dinosaur-like hip with the open acetabular, which you can't see, but it's true. You know, you've already got pictured here the 4th trochanter on the femur, right back here. You've got the radius and ulna locked into the groove. You've got the semilunate carpal that is a distinctly dinosaurian trait. You got the supernumerary sort of cervical vertebrae, which is very dinosaur. It's not unique to dinosaurs, but it's very characteristic of them. You've got so the whole there's unicate processes. I mean, many dinosaurs have unicate processes. They're particularly substantial in birds, but I mean, you've also got the antorbital fenestra on the skull. I mean, it's a dinosaur. This is a dinosaur skeleton. It's a highly derived and specialized dinosaur skeleton, but it remains a dinosaur skeleton. So let's see what he has to do about it. Oh, he's even got the characteristic ankle joint down here that only allows movement in the sagittal plane.
What features do birds have that dinosaurs don't?
I mean, a lot. They've got the the fused digits. They've got the.
What features do birds have that dinosaurs? Brain, work for me here. What features do dinosaurs have that birds don't? That they need to be dinosaurs, and the answer is none.
Yeah, so like all groups, right? Like this is basically saying cows aren't mammals. Because unlike mammals, cows have, and then you list all of the specialized things that make a cow its own distinct, and by cow I guess I mean bovid, right? So
yeah,
if you're like, oh, bovids aren't mammals because they've got horns and they've got, you know, only 2 toes, and then you say like mammals have 5 toes and they don't have horns, and it's like, okay, well, no, most mammals, the basal condition for mammals is no horns and 5 toes, but you pointing out what makes a cow doesn't make it not a mammal. Just like pointing out what makes a bird doesn't make it not a dinosaur. You have to point out what a dinosaur is, which, by the way, he failed to do. And yeah, I actually do wonder how the creationists are gonna, like, what their spin is on AiG.
I know Robert Byers' spin. It's gonna be a bat.
Well, actually, so I have heard a little. They haven't really talked about it a lot. But I've heard some of them say that maybe it's a bat or a pterosaur, and it's just like, no, guys.
No. Yeah, Innis Image thinks it's a pterosaur, doesn't he?
He thinks it might be. He's not very confident.
Skeleton of the bird there. And boy, now take a look not only at the skeleton of the bird. Now compare this, Mr. Davis, Buddy Davis, with the skeleton of a dinosaur.
Oh, hey, look. This is a rough drawing, but let's look at some similarities. You don't have it pictured here, but there should be a clavicle little fusion into a wishbone, a furcula. You got that same antorbital fenestra. It wasn't very clear, but birds also typically maintain the mandibular fenestra that was maintained by most theropods. Now, this isn't a picostyle, but the end of the tail actually has tendons running down it to help stiffen it and keep it as a single unit. Approaching that picostyle condition, we've also got the bird-like hip, where both the ilium and the ischium project down into the rear, which is not the default condition for sauroskians, but was a condition that you find in many paravians, those dinosaurs that are close to birds. Let's see. Now, we don't actually have the fusion of the metatarsal bones into a tarsometatarsus. However, we have their close association, and in many paravians, they moved as a single unit because they were so tightly packed that the bones actually sort of interfaced together in a way to lock them in place. Again, no carpals here, but there should be a semilunate carpal here, just like in the bird skeleton. You also have, you can see these rows of neural spines here along the pelvis. Those are the vertebrae that are fused into the hip, just creating a synsacrum right between the sacral arches. Yeah, just like a bird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dunning-Kruger points out, differentiating birds from dinos is similar to differentiating humans from apes.
Right. The best you can say is that of the category of dinosaurs, birds are a particular group. Of the category of apes, humans are a particular group. You cannot take them out of the group by pointing out that they are particular members. Pointing out the things that make a bird, not going to help. So here we go.
Don't you see, buddy, that there's a lot of similarities there? Well, you can't go by just by what those bones look like. I would expect an awesome creator.
Oh, he's actually accepting that they're similar.
Works would use that design in several different things, but that doesn't mean one evolved into the other.
But that's the thing, buddy. It doesn't have to mean that one evolved into the other. You accept that whales are mammals without thinking that all mammals share a common ancestor. You can hold both separate ancestry as well as taxonomy as both ideas that don't logically conflict in your brain at the same time. Like, there's no reason to expect taxonomy to work in a special creation paradigm, but they're not logically contradictory.
Yeah, when you actually get into, like, common design, it's just, okay, is this a rescuing device?
Basically.
Yes,
Yes,
it is.
yes, it is, yeah. Because this nested hierarchy is exactly what we don't see in designed objects. But it's exactly what we do see in this.
Of course,
in biology.
When you say that, Standing and Co. will point to cars.
But the problem is that you actually can't put cars in an objective nested hierarchy.
Yep.
So you just can't, right? Like you can say, oh, we'll start with our highest categorization being like car size or number of cylinders in the engine. You can start anywhere, right? Oh goodness, I did it again. So if it were the case that, say, all four-door cars had 6 or more cylinders, okay, that might be an interesting start. And then all four-door cars with 6 cylinders had this particular style of key, and you couldn't find that style of key anywhere else. No, like, Mack trucks were using this style key or anything like that. Then maybe, but instead all these parts can be switched out and switched in, which is exactly what you don't see in biology.
Yeah, take for example, you can literally have the exact same car, but the designer switched out its 6-cylinder for an 8-cylinder.
Yeah.
So like, okay, it's violating the nested hierarchy.
Monk Mayfair asks, do we still get Eric with Erica double Dapper Dino streams today? Unfortunately, no. Erica tried to be with us. However, the internet in her new apartment has yet to be hooked up. So there you go. And also, Nestor20 says, he says a costume, but I believe he means custom. Design car will mess up your automobile phylogeny. Right, because people don't have to design into phylogenies. They just don't.
No.
For some reason, apparently, God does. Or maybe there's common descent.
Maybe.
Which explains easily, and without needing to invoke God just tricking you, why there's a nested hierarchy. And we'll keep going with this.
Now here's what I mean. Take a look at this right here. Here are 2 skeletons, right? And both of these skeletons look very much...
Okay, what do we got? Tdlane, identification time.
Looks like a horse actually is one, I think.
Which one? The top one or the bottom one?
Top one.
Okay.
Bottom one, I'm not sure.
I am fairly confident that this is a cow. And chat, what do you think?
Actually,
let me know first what the top one is. If you think
you might be right.
If you think, let me know what you think the top one is, and then we'll do. Oh, bottom is bison. Look, Mayfair goes with bottom is bison. Yeah, it could be bison. I mean, it's some kind of large bovid. Horse on the top, bottom is a cow, horse and cow, top is horse, bottom is bison.
Yeah, I think the bottom is definitely a bison. The upper one is...
I mean, it's an equid, right?
Yeah, I want to say it's a horse.
It's probably a horse, it could be a zebra, I don't know.
And to be fair, they're not that distant.
Right, the skeleton of a horse and the skeleton of a zebra are going to be pretty darn similar.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's our consensus. So what I want to point out is that we now have 2 organisms that are ungulates. So I want to hear what Buddy has to say about why these 2 aren't related. So here we go. Are bison bovids? Yes. Bovids are basically sheep, goats, and cows. And
yeah, I also want to make a note here in which mammal postcranial skeletons tend not to differ too much.
Yeah, the postcranial mammals are boring.
Yes, very.
Although in this you get a few interesting things, like you get the hooves, you get the somewhat specialized pelvic girdle, you get that nice little hump of neural spines up here to attach powerful shoulder muscles to. That's always fun.
Yeah, but like in terms of like spine and ribcage, not much.
Yeah, very boring. But here we go.
Much the same, right? Okay? But you got to put the rest of the animal together, and you can see there's a lot of differences there in these two animals. See what I mean?
Yeah, but they're still both ungulates, buddy. What is your point? No one is
close to one another.
Like, no one is saying that Tyrannosaurus Rex and a pigeon aren't very different animals. No one is making that argument.
Yeah.
The question is, are they in the larger category? And you have two ungulates. They're in that category. Does Buddy want us to tell us that they aren't ungulates? If so, why?
Yeah, Dreadland worm.
Oh, you know what? Here it is. It is Ovidae. Wait. Oh, now I gotta. I think it's. Is it Ovinae? I think it's a subfamily.
It's
know
like
what?
Bovidae, I think, or Bovid.
My history. Oh, you know what it is? It's antelopes, not sheep. There you go.
They're ridiculous.
Oh no! Wait, no. It is. Sheep are also in Bovidae. I was right. Yeah.
No, that whole group is ridiculously close, and yet creationists divide them into different kinds.
So, yeah. Sheep are in Bovidae. So Bovidae includes antelopes, it includes wildebeests, the ibex, goats, sheep. It's a ridiculous giant. And then there's Bovinae, which includes... Yeah, then Bovinae includes things like water buffalo and the domestic cow and whatnot. Yeah, so there you go. Sorry. Hey, you know what? Never be afraid, though, to call me out on something like that, because I get stuff wrong all the time. All right.
You're just wrong.
Yep. All right, here we go.
And here's two other skeletons that look very much alike.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
If you guys can't get what the left one is, then you should go back to school. So we're not even going to ask about the left one, but what do we got on the right?
Looks to me like a Pantroglodytes.
Does it?
A bit.
Okay. Stop gazelle shaming. Okay, Monk Mayfair, no more shame on the gazelles. You go, gazelles. Maybe chimp? So I'm actually going to go pretty strongly in on gorilla, and I'm going to tell you why. That is a very pronounced sagittal crest on the top of that skull. And chimpanzees usually have very reduced sagittal crests. So that is why I'm going with gorilla.
Alright.
So, a orang might be an option. The very divergent big toe does lend itself towards that. But, still, that sagittal crest has got me. Also, it's very, very stocky. Orangs aren't quite as stocky. But then again, these are just, crappy little line drawings, so who knows?
Ness, like, Kent Hovind, can you explain for the audience what the left one is?
Goodness. I love that little tactic of his. It's like, let's explain it for the audience so that they know. It's like, oh, so they know, Kent, sure.
Well, you see, Homo sapiens means thinking man.
Yeah. Well, and also, here's the thing, right? You've got similar skeletons, but you've got similar animals. No matter what you're going to reveal the right one to be, they're in the same family.
Yeah.
So they're even closer than the horse and the cow. By a lot.
And better yet, like, birds and dinosaurs, non-avian dinosaurs, are extremely separate at this point. And yet they still look ridiculously similar.
Yeah. Here we go.
I can promise you this much, there's only one of these guys that's ever going to read a book.
Right.
So you can't go...
All right, and I can promise you this much. There's only one of these guys who's going to eat a bunch of leaves and ferment them in their gut. What's your point? I can point out how gorillas are different from other apes, too. Like, there's literally no point to this. Things are different, therefore they're not related is not an argument.
Yeah, no, it's... In fact, actually, things are different, therefore evolution. There you go.
Well, I wouldn't go quite that far, but it's certainly... It just doesn't help his case.
I would say similar things that are divergent is not really a argument for design,
Right.
but it doesn't really bother evolution at all. Also, hi Ilya.
Hi, Ilya. Oh, don't worry about being late. People are late sometimes. It happens.
We're all late.
Oh, just by what the skeletons say. This is my Jeep. If I believed in millions of years, I could say, wow, look what happened over millions of years. And nobody would believe that. Everybody knows that that Jeep never evolved into an airplane. But
tell you what, buddy, you find me those Jeeps that reproduce with things like inherited mutations and actually reproduce naturally, and therefore can undergo morphological change over time, and then we'll start talking.
If you want to know what that slapping sound was, that was my hand hitting my forehead.
Yeah, unsurprising. All right, here we go. Let's get a little bit more Buddy in here. We're going to snail. I actually thought we might get a decent clip here. We're not even halfway through.
No.
There's similarities. We have windows in both of them. We have tires. We have an engine. But both of them show evidence of design. Now, if our facts are the same, then why doesn't God's word, the Bible, mention dinosaurs?
Something, dragon, something.
No, hold on. There's dinosaurs all over the Bible. The Bible talks about doves and crows and vultures and eagles and hawks. It's trivially easy to find dinosaurs in the Bible. They're just not Mesozoic dinosaurs.
Neslik has this on point. Similarities and differences are distributed in a twin nested hierarchical pattern, therefore evolution.
Yes, that is in fact a pretty good argument. It's not definitive 100% logical proof. However, it is very hard to come up with any parsimonious explanation other than common ancestry for that fact. And Bermudasaurus 303 says, why is he comparing live organisms to a man-made machine? Because if he doesn't do a bad job, he can't argue for creationism.
Yeah.
So
they aren't analogous, so make an analogy out of them.
Look, I didn't come up with this. Aaron Ra did, but he says, okay, what is it? Is honest, well-informed, creationist. You get two of those. You can be a dishonest, well-informed creationist. You can be a not well-informed, but honest creationist. Or you can both be honest and well-informed and not be a creationist. Those are the only options. If you know what you're talking about and you're a creationist, you're being dishonest. So, yeah. That's basically what it comes down to. Yep. Aaron Ra is wrong on some things. He's not wrong on that.
You can't find the word dinosaur in the Bible, but there's a good explanation for that. The word dinosaur is a brand new word invented by Sir Richard Owen. What's his name? Sir Richard Owen.
Can we pause?
And I drew a picture. I like to draw a picture.
Yeah.
There are a lot of words in English that don't have exact analogs in Hebrew, yet we can still translate. So,
he's just going with English at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know. And the thing is, like, if the Bible had referenced an organism for which a larger group category had not been named yet, which does all the time, because none of taxonomy was finished when the last book in the Bible was written. I mean, that doesn't mean that those things aren't in the Bible. So just saying the word wasn't invented doesn't explain why there aren't dinosaurs in the Bible. And I know where this is going to go. This is going to go to Behemoth or Leviathan.
Where it's like, I feel like we would have a lot of depictions of these animals and actual words for them that aren't just dragon, because dragon is mythology, and we can basically say that with certainty because it is applied to a vast array of extremely different depictions.
Yeah.
Generally with a shared mythological background.
Valkia Karavi says, no words have exact analogs in another language. That's broadly the case. You can get some very simple words that are essentially identical, like especially when you get down to like very basic pronouns. Like a first person singular pronoun is going to be something that's going to be hard to find a language without, and it's going to be hard to see what the big semantic differences are between, like, say, the word I in English and ich in German. Like,
interestingly, in in European and Indo-European languages, you can find a trend of descent between them.
Yeah.
To Indo-European.
Well, that's also true for other language families, like Sino-Tibetan languages. Although it is broadly true, though, that for the more important words that carry most of the semantic meaning in a sentence, none of them really overlap one-to-one with other languages. There are exceptions, but they're very basic, or they're very, very specific. So if you get into technical jargon, you can get exact correlations. The words you use every day there's always going to be some kind of weird overlap.
What I would expect if dinosaurs were around historically in the past 6,000 years would be generally different areas having large amounts of depictions of them that are good.
Well, let's see what Buddy's argument is, because he hasn't talked about the depictions yet, but I think he might. Right. So here we go.
So I drew a picture of Sir Richard Owen so you could see what he looks like. And he invented the word dinosaur in 1841. What year did he invent the word dinosaur? 1841. And what was his name? Sir Richard Owen. Who invented the word dinosaur? Sir Richard Owen. What year? 1841. So really, the word dinosaur is a brand new word. That's why I cannot find the word dinosaur in the Bible. It's a brand new word. But the Bible talks about dragons, and we're going to talk about that just a little bit later. Could they be the same?
Why did I know it?
It could be. So we're going to cover that. So stick right with me. But
also,
this is the dinosaur creature that's mentioned in the Bible.
Oh, hey, Vandelli 1998. Oh, sending that Mothra.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate the fact that they use the fact that various mythological creatures are called dragons, despite them not having much in common. Like, it's like monster. There's no commonality.
Yeah, please go look at European dragons. And tell me that those all are referring to dinosaurs when there's so much variety.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, better yet, that they would often be depicted as a bit furred creatures at times or scaly. There was no consistency.
Yeah. Also, hey, Kenny. Kenny is one of my more recent channel members, so he gets that fancy little green guy in a top hat as his badge for having been a subscriber, or not a subscriber, a member for under a month. And then it
Make
goes,
sure you don't look Kenny.
Yep. Then it goes to the monocle and the top hat, and eventually it goes to a golden top hat and a few other things. There'll be surprises, don't worry. One day, if you remember, you'll be typing in chat and you'll have a new badge. Here we go.
Bible, this is in Job chapter 40, starting with verse 15, and this is God talking to Job, his servant Job, about this creature that God had made, and Job knows this animal. Job can identify with this animal, and God's telling Job a lot about it, and one of the things that he says is that it has a tail like a cedar tree. Now, some Bible translations...
Okay. I'm going to read this. He moveth his tail like a cedar. It does not say his tail is like unto a cedar, or his tail is shaped like a cedar, or his tail is the size of a cedar. It says it moves like a cedar. And Eurasian cedars, unlike North American cedars, actually have a lot of bend to them. It's how they adapt to high winds, basically. They swish back and forth because they're flexible.
Ugly German Truths, it depends entirely on what depiction of dragons. They change depending on depiction, whether they're hexapodal or quadrupedal or even bipedal.
Yeah.
But as a second note, Mr. Dapper, I have a question. Why are all creationists illiterate?
Yeah, I don't know. Because, again, you have to be dishonest or misinformed to be a creationist. Those are the only options.
It's right in front of him.
Yep.
Literally can't read it right.
Yep.
Translations will say this behemoth creature was probably an elephant or hippopotamus, because it's talking about a large animal, and that they just assumed that it's probably an elephant or hippopotamus. But tell me this, do they have a tail like a cedar tree? Nope, maybe a little flap of skin or something like that. Maybe an elephant has a tail like a fly swatter.
That's exactly what is meant there. Also, sauropods, which is what they always make the connection to. I guess he hasn't technically, but I'm just going to preempt it. Didn't eat grass. The reason they got so big was so that they could eat things that weren't grass.
Also keep in mind that their necks weren't always that flexible.
No.
Yeah, like if they tried to actually get down to eat grass, it would be kind of ridiculous for one.
Well, I'll be fair, there were some grazers among the sauropods.
Yeah, but it's ridiculous, and I'd love to see that in real life, honestly.
Yeah.
I want to see that because it's going to be hilarious.
I guess a sauropod could eat bamboo. Bamboo is a grass.
Oh, yeah.
There were some sauropods who were grazers, though. It's just that is not the typical niche for the members of those.
How a sauropod would live on grass with the amount of energy requirements.
It almost certainly couldn't. Grass is both difficult to digest as well as very deficient in terms of nutrients.
Let alone bamboo.
And Dread Lindworm points out that tail is a euphemism for penis in a lot of languages, particularly KJV era English. That's true. That is an interpretation. But you don't need that interpretation. So it's iffy, and it is paired with the histones, which are almost certainly a euphemism for testicles. And them being wrapped together, in fact, could be a reference to the fact that elephants don't have a scrotum. But then again, neither do hippos, so it still works for hippos. There is also a bit that I believe is after this, where it says his nose pierceth snares, or goes, which basically in the King James, pierce didn't mean like to puncture, it just meant to go through. So if you went through a door, you could have been said to have pierced the door. It's not the typical parlance that would have been used, but yeah, it's hard to find too many animals whose nose can go through a snare that isn't an elephant. So. And and sauropods wouldn't have had navels. So navel is a sort of very, very particularly eutherian sort of thing.
But nothing like a cedar tree, but a dinosaur has a tail like a cedar tree. And it's caused a lot of people, when you read everything in Job chapter 40, verse 15 about this creature, it fits the description of what boys and girls call the long-necked dinosaurs.
Yep, he is going to go for sauropod.
Call these the sauropod dinosaurs.
So
there are different species in that family of sauropods.
Shocked, I say.
Well, what do the bones tell us about dinosaurs? What do the bones tell us? Okay. Well, when we look at the bones of a dinosaur, one thing that you don't find is any sign that says that they're millions of years old. I dig up dinosaur bones in Montana and other places. I like to go on dinosaur digs, and we've yet to ever dig up a bone that said that animal is 65 million years old.
Yep, you're not going to find a sign that says it's 65 million years old. However, the relative dating of stratigraphic column is very, very well established, and because of igneous intrusions, you can bracket nearly every stratum with a fairly tight age. So basically, because radiometric dating works, and because stratigraphy works, we can actually pretty darn accurately date these things. Now, when I say pretty darn accurately, I usually mean within a few million years, right? Like, you're not going to get, like, June 3rd, 46,231,602 BC. Like, that's not what's you're going to get.
Yeah, on a note, when you were dating something to 66 million years, by the way, in 2020, there's no excuse to use the old 65 million year.
Correct.
And I will fight people over this. If you are dating something to 66 million years old, an error bar of 1 million years is a bit wide, but completely acceptable.
Yeah.
It's more likely to be within the range of 1 to 300,000 years, honestly. It's not that bad, considering how long ago you're dating. When you're dating to 500 million years ago, an error bar of 1 million years is expected.
Yeah.
You're going to be looking at bigger error bars the further back you go, but relative to previous datings, there's still generally going to be the same percentage error bar.
Yeah. I was going to say, though, I am jealous of that T-Rex cranium he's got there.
Yes, that's... I want it.
Or older, you don't find that information on the dinosaurs at all. So that's a number that man has placed on it because they so much want to believe in evolution, and the only way that evolution can happen is if you keep throwing in the millions of years, and pretty soon...
Butter Skywalker has an interesting question. Have paleontologists tried to cut bones and count the rings? And the answer is yes. So some dinosaurs, and I don't know, I guess I can't say all, but as far as I know, all that we have checked on have growth rings in their bones that are somewhat similar to tree rings. They are typically roughly annual-ish, but it's a little bit more complicated than or not complicated, but it's a little less straightforward than dendrochronology in terms of the bone histology, but they have been used to do things like give us approximate ages for when an animal died, or at least when it reached physical maturity, as well as give us growth rates. It's one of the ways that we know that dinosaurs had prodigious growth rates in many cases, and that they could grow extremely fast, especially things like sauropods. Oddly enough, theropods, which is the group that birds fall into, actually tend to have slower growth rates than many other dinosaurs, despite the fact that birds typically have some of the fastest growth rates of any animals, going from juvenile to adult.
Yeah, for a example of a theropod that had some interesting developmental changes, look at Tyrannosaurus rex, where it over very slowly grew and then just growth spurts. Theropods are a bit weird in that respect, and birds are even weirder.
Also, William asks, what's the youngest a rock can be for it to be carbon dated? So one thing is you can't carbon date rocks. Carbon dating is only for organic material because it depends on...
Actually, I will say this. You can carbon date peat, but that isn't a rock yet.
Right.
And it has to be within like 50,000 or so years.
That's how old it can be. But the youngest that you can get reliable dates on is usually it needs to be more than about a century or so, and it would be preferred that it be a few centuries old. But so it can't be rock. It has to have organic material, because the way that carbon dating works is the carbon-14 is going to be roughly at equilibrium with the environment of an organism. So, for instance, most of the carbon that you get in your diet, you actually get from the food that you eat. But plants actually get it directly from the atmosphere. And so then animals will eat the plants, and either that'll be humans directly eating the plants, or humans eating meat that the plants will have eaten. And so that's true for any other animal in the environment, right? So,
if I may, with like something of like a century old, if you were to carbon date that, you would get a date for it, but it would be a little bit iffy.
Yeah, it would basically be at the low end of the scale. So anyway, now, the time scale between getting into the plant and then getting into an animal is so far below the half-life of carbon-14 that it essentially is instantaneous. Now, when an organism dies, it stops taking in new carbon from the environment, and the carbon-14 that's already in there will decay. And so that is why carbon dating is going to work for that. But if you just have a rock, there's no way that it's going to get atmospheric carbon that just happens to be at equilibrium, and like it just doesn't really work for rocks. It's only organic material.
Yeah, false negatives.
Yep. So
you're just going to get basically readings of carbon when there's no actual carbon in it, because the machines actually do read background radiation, basically.
There's also residual carbon from previous samples that you'll get that'll sometimes ping on insufficient samples.
You never get a zero with dating methods. That's an important note.
Yeah, there's sort of a certain level of just background stuff that's going on that means that you're not going to return an age of 0 on anything.
It's why actual serious geochronologists and such, the people that do radiometric dating, subtract the background readings, unlike Mr. Snelling and Steve Austin.
Yeah, there's some bad creation geology going on there.
Oh no, it's plain outright just
it's fraud,
lying for their teeth.
Yeah, it's academic fraud. Here we go. Let's get a little more Buddy in.
And people will start to believe that, and after several generations, people have started to believe that. And I don't buy that at all. I used to, but when I look at the evidence is not there for it to be millions of years. You can trust God's word. That's the point that I really want to get through to you guys with all the passion that I can muster, is to show you that we can trust the word of God, hook, line, and sinker. We need not apologize for what the word of God says. Well, let's continue. When we look at the skeleton of some dinosaurs, we can see some bad things have happened to these guys. This is a big old Tyrannosaurus rex. And if you look way far over here on this rib cage, way over here, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's some his bones have been broken. Let me blow this picture up. You can see it even more. Watch this right here.
I was kind of hoping for an explosion, but I'll take a zoom in.
I was promised explosions.
Oh well.
You can see it even closer. You can see that his bones have been broken.
Yeah.
But we know, according to the fossil record is absolutely full of pain, death, killing, disease, thorns, thistles, struggle, and extinction.
Dead animals.
Yeah, I mean,
They're dead animals. What do you expect?
I want to know what the point of this is.
Flood.
That might be it.
Sin flood.
Sin
Flood
flood?
of a sin.
Okay.
God's a jerk.
There's what you believe if millions of years be true. I don't buy that, but the fossil record is telling us a lot of information, something that we need to pay attention of. We know that there was no death before sin, according to God. When He first created everything, all creatures would have been nice, been nice and gentle. They've been wonderful to be around. Even this big old T-Rex. See this T-Rex in front of me with those big old teeth? He'd have used those teeth to eat on plants and other types of food.
No. Okay.
No.
Here's the thing. The problem with eating plants, which is a substantial problem, is that it's very hard to break down a plant. They're very tough and fibrous, and they resist a lot of digestion. Cellulose is a pain in the butt to digest, and every plant has cellulose as a major component of its every cell is just coated in cellulose. That's kind of why it's called that. It's cell sugar. It's what makes the walls of the cells of plants. Cellulose. And so one of the things that you'll notice is that even though many herbivores can have sharp-looking fangs, like you get there's a deer that has fangs that actually hang out of its mouth. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, saber teeth.
Yeah,
for no reason.
And camels have vicious-looking fangs too. Many primarily herbivorous monkeys have big old canines, although that's mostly sexual selection. And then
if you actually can't look into herbivores or omnivores with large fangs, you find that like with most primates, it's generally just sexual selection. Like, or if you go over to say swine. I can't say the name of that clade at all. It's
Suidae?
Yes, Suidae. There you go. Now I can say it. Surprise. They have these. I think it's canine teeth. They're very big, but they use them for digging in the ground.
Yeah.
That's what they use them for.
And the thing is, you're
ripping apart Baratheons, but that's another point.
And the thing is, you're going to see that they have, in fact, got teeth or other methods to digest plants that T-Rex simply doesn't have. We've never found any gastroliths associated with T-Rex or really any other carnivorous theropod. They do not have the dentition for plant matter. And then you look over at, say, this Parasaurolophus, which, while it's not a great reconstruction, if you were to open up its jaw, you would see that it has this battery of closely packed, flat-topped teeth that it uses to grind up plants.
Neslik, the like giving even like a generous interpretation, it's biblically grapes are not alive, nor plants really. They wouldn't consider those to be alive in the same sense animals are, land animals to say. So I'm not going to bother contesting that because there's no point.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
But death came because of sin. When Adam rebelled against God, this earth was cursed, and now we live in a sin-cursed world. And that's what the fossil record is really telling us. Am I making that clear? I hope so. Because here's what the fossil record is really describing to us, the worldwide flood. And yes, we do find death, pain, killing, disease, thorns, struggle, suffering, and extinction in the fossil record, but that is proof of the worldwide flood. I have people tell me there's no evidence of the worldwide flood. And you know what? It's the fossil record that screams out that God judged this world because of sin. All
right, so I am currently like 4 parts into a 6-part series called Creationism is a Mega Catastrophe, all about geology and the flood and creationism. I don't want to get too far into it here, so please check that out if you want.
Go watch it. It's good.
It's when all is said and done, it's probably going to be somewhere around 2 hours worth of just dedicated taking down this one particular speech, and it's all very, very much more detailed than anything I'm going to say here. What I'm going to say here
for chowing down on melons.
No. But what I'm going to say here is that you cannot explain the fossil-bearing strata of the Earth by means of a single global flood. For one thing, many of the rocks that are there actually take too long to be deposited. So, for instance, we have things like shale without floccules. We have things like Aeolian sandstone, which was laid down by wind. We have things like we have limestone. We have things like we have things like evaporites, which can only form as large bodies of water slowly evaporate over time, and precipitates form, which is basically as things come out of solution because the solution of the water can no longer support that high concentration. Salts and other types of minerals will precipitate out and fall to the bottom and then build up there. That is not a thing that can happen under a global flood. If there were a global flood that caused all of these fossil-bearing layers, we wouldn't have any ichnofossils like footprints and burrows. We wouldn't have... Every single fossil-bearing layer would be a turbidite deposit. Most of them aren't. Some of them are. We wouldn't have things like airborne ash with fossils in it, which is a thing we do have. Lots of volcanic eruptions resulted in mass dying events in the local areas where the ash came down and actually lithified, keeping the animals preserved. There was none of these things.
Fossils are from that. So yeah,
none of these things can be explained by a global flood.
None of them can, and the best part is when you say that you expect lots of dead things in a flood, yeah, sure, whatever. But the problem is that's extremely explainable just by things get buried easily when events that would cause rapid deposition occur, or things that like stick around for a long time, like, I don't know, the shells of bivalves or brachiopods, trilobite shells.
Also, I want to point out real quick, I'm only seeing 39 likes, but we got 60 people here, now up to 61. Come on, guys, hit that like button, it helps.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where this is completely explainable by an old Earth.
Yeah, also...
And the actual rocks and the geochemistry completely contradict the flood narrative.
Yeah, and Slim Live...
the more parsimonious option to say old Earth, no flood.
And Slim Living Cyborg also points out we wouldn't have the Grand Canyon. It's true. The various erosional features of the Earth that are obvious.
Best of all, Dapper. The world does not match the geology we expect with a large flood, because we know what large floods look like.
All right, here we go. Let's get a little more buddy in.
Everything was very good, but when Adam rebelled, there's when all of this came into being. For instance, I have some people say, well, there's no evidence of the worldwide flood. And again, it's the fossils. Almost all fossils, like this picture is showing you, is found in sedimentary type rocks.
Yep,
Almost
that's true.
All fossils are found in what? Sedimentary type rocks. Hey, that's a type of rock that's laid down by sand, mud, with water.
No, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's laid down by the air or the wind.
Yeah, it can be laid down by air. Another point is that the almost part is basically due to La Brea tar pits, and that's it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, all fossils are found in sedimentary rock.
So the other...
And it's in metamorphic, but they're usually pretty trashed by it.
Yeah. The other thing to point out is that even of the sedimentary rocks that are in fact laid down by water, many of them cannot be laid down in floods. In fact, most of them, most types of sedimentary rock are not flood deposits.
Again, I point to limestone, which has a usual limestone, like say, I don't know, what you would expect to see at the Grand Canyon, or chalk beds. They have a minimum time they can sell to the bottom of the sea.
Yeah.
And then they have to liquefy, which takes... Both of those take a long time.
Yeah, there's a lot of rocks that simply...
Limestone, too. Because there are limestones that can sell to the bottom of the sea very quickly, but they take but all on to liquefy.
Yep. So yeah, not going to cut it as an explanation. Here we go.
Now, if there really was a worldwide flood, if that event really did take place all over this earth, I'd expect to find all kinds of plants and animals buried in rocks that were made out of sand, mud with water, and guess what? That's exactly what you find.
Pause it. Many dead things, therefore flood. Flood, therefore many dead things. This seems like a circle to me.
I mean, maybe. If there were a flood, I would predict to see this thing. When I see the thing, therefore the flood. I mean, that's basically the scientific method, right? Like, okay, fair enough. But the thing is that he's basically just being way too broad. It's like, oh, I would expect to see lots of dead things in rocks. It's like, okay, that's fair, but you need to be way more specific. I would expect to see lots of dead things, not well stratified rock that are mixed with organisms from other biomes all together because of the flood.
Point. Also, glacial tills are also a thing that can deposit, albeit it's
Oh yeah. Well, technically that's water. Aha! Loophole. But yeah, anyway, you need to be much more specific about your predictions. And the fact is that when you specifically point out what a global flood would actually do, ignoring the heat problem, you do not get anything that even remotely resembles the geology of Earth.
Fine. Okay. The fossil record is screaming out that God judged this world because of sin. That's what the fossil record is telling us. They don't come with labels on them that says it's millions of years old, but the rocks that you're telling that you find these bones in tells us that God judged this world because of sin.
No.
Well, did dinosaurs go on the ark then? I have people ask me that, and so I put this up great big. Here's my answer. Yes, of course they did.
Okay.
Dinosaurs would have went on the ark. People say, well, how would they fit? Well, if we see these cartoon images that you often see in a lot of storybooks today, paints a fairy tale image. And it'd be impossible for dinosaurs to go inside of a...
Wait, it paints a fairy tale image of an impossible flood? Okay.
Oh, I got a prediction of what we should see in the fossil record if a flood were true. A bunch of bones that are completely mixed up in a fossil record that would basically be one giant conglomerate on top of what would be non-sedimentary basement rock.
Mm-hmm.
The igneous. That's what I would expect.
Which is not what we see.
A boat that looks like that, or one that looks like this, like a bathtub that's about ready to sink at any moment with drafts sticking their heads out of the top. That's not what Noah's Ark looked like. That's why we built the Ark at the Ark encounter that people can go and see. Noah's Ark was a huge vessel. Didn't look like any cartoon image that you see that's a fairy tale image. It was a real boat, plenty big enough for the dinosaurs to go on the Ark and a lot of other animals as well.
It's not big enough.
No, I'm going to just say one thing. Methane.
Yeah, so the Ark... Okay, there's a reason that the Ark encounter in Kentucky, run by Answers in Genesis, the people who made this video, has a zoo, but that it's not inside the Ark. In order to make the Ark encounter that the actual structure of the Ark, which is just a building that looks like a boat, they had to use extensive central air and ventilation and fans and a gigantic industrial air conditioning system that's out the other side of the Ark that you don't normally see, the side that just faces into the woods. And that's just to make it so that you can survive in there. Having all of those animals building up carbon dioxide and methane and dung, not having fresh food for many animals can't eat dried or preserved food or simply won't. You've got, and also to preserve actual biodiversity in the time frame that we know that biodiversity would have been reestablished, because we have ways that we can check if the YEC timeline were right. What other independent things do we have? So we have things like we have accounts from Egyptians of extant biodiversity at the time when we get people like Abraham encountering the Egyptians. So we know what animals were already there, which means either they had to speciate to that point, which they couldn't have, or Noah would have had to bring all of these species on the Ark, which is the only option that actually makes any sense, and it's pretty clearly what was meant in the text.
I would like to know that the Ark, as you said, it was basically going to be a suffocating, sweltering heat box that would literally be an explosive.
Yep. Also, Vinces86 says the flood damage Ark. So there actually was a rather amusing story about Ken Ham suing his insurance company that insures the Ark encounter for flood damages. Although, to be fair, the flood washed out. Yeah, the flood washed out a road and covered the road with a bunch of dirt and mud and whatnot. So it's funny, but it's unfortunately the real story, as is often the case, isn't as funny as I would like.
Yeah.
All right. And the Bible tells us in Genesis 7:15, and they went into the Ark, Noah, and they went into Noah and the Ark, and 2 by 2 of all flesh, wherein is the breath of life. So yes, they would have went aboard the Ark. So if they went on the Ark, then they had to come off the Ark as well.
Yep, that is his reconstruction, because that was his Velociraptor too.
but no one called them dinosaurs when they came off the ark. Nope, because the word dinosaur was invented. When did I say that?
Yeah, no one called them horses or rhinos or dogs either, because those words hadn't been invented. Who cares?
The word dinosaur was invented 1841 by who? Who was that guy? I forget his name. Oh yeah, Sir Richard Owen. He's the guy who invented the word dinosaur.
I can't tell if this is for kids or not.
Let me know when he actually gets to something.
Yeah.
All right, but the Bible talks about dragons. And I am convinced that the dragon legends of long ago are what we call dinosaurs today.
Oh, goody.
Is there any evidence that people have seen these creatures? Well, we find, if you could find petroglyphs or petrographs of dinosaurs, it'd be pretty good evidence that people have seen these. Take a look.
Okay.
I know it's going to come up.
I have a feeling of what's going to come up, and what we're going to do is we're going to compare some paleo, because I'm pretty sure he's going to pull up some of these very hard to make out, and not what he thinks they are petroglyphs. But then we're going to pull out some cave art from Paleolithic cultures, and we're going to see how they depicted animals. And yeah, I'll have a point to make at that point.
Look at these pictures right here. This is in National Bridges Monument. I have been to this site. I have seen this with my own eyes, and this is what the Indians drew on one of the canyon walls. I'm going to outline it for you so you can see it even better. What's that look like?
It looks kind of like a snake and some people standing in front of it. It's actually, if I remember correctly, like 3 different images, but let's see what he says, because he's just going to say it's a sauropod.
I show that picture to the boys and girls. You know what they say? A long-necked dinosaur, and that's exactly what it looks like, a sauropod-type dinosaur.
You mean little kids who are impressionable and who have already been primed to be thinking about dinosaurs, and then you show them a picture that kind of looks like a 2-year-old's version of what a sauropod might look like? Okay. But it doesn't look like what anyone who saw an actual sauropod in real life would have drawn, because for one thing, they didn't drag their tails like that, they didn't have a neck shape like that, all the legs are indistinct, and also, we're going to bring up...
Yeah, I just sent you a Wikipedia link to a French cave with a bunch of cave art in it, of real animals.
Yep. So,
yeah, but like this actual picture, this actual petroglyph has been broken down. It's not one petroglyph.
No, it's not.
Multiple.
All right, so here's an example of some paleo art showing woolly rhinos in France. Okay? This is the level of accuracy that we can expect with paleo art that can inform us about extinct organisms. We know more about the actual biology of certain extinct organisms because of nice, accurate paleo art from caves. Here's another painting from the same cave of cave lions.
People that saw these animals pretty much constantly throughout their lives and knew what they looked like.
Right. This is cave lions. These look like lions. Wake me up when you have a picture of a dinosaur that is actually accurate and that is that easily identifiable.
Yeah, wake me up when we can get a petroglyph from North America of a Parasaurolophus that actually looks accurate.
Yep.
It isn't just basically stick figure level art.
Mm-hmm.
And you find things like this. This is not just an isolated case. You find things like this all over the world. Here's another example. You also find things that look like this right here. This is an Inca burial stone.
First, okay. First, it's not Inca, it's Ica. They're not the same thing. Second, this is a known forgery. Third, maybe he doesn't know this because his dinosaur reconstructions are already very inaccurate, but this is not an accurate reconstruction of a Triceratops. This does not look like anything that someone had seen a Triceratops in real life would have drawn. This looks like someone who saw Triceratops in comic books. And that's exactly what happened. The person who made these was a farmer. He was selling them fraudulently on the antiquities market, which is already a black market because it's illegal. And he was baking them in dung to artificially age them after he carved them based on comic books and toys. It's just really bad.
Really bad. 2 things. First, Alexa, play Mad World by Gary Jules. Secondly, AiG has said not to use these.
Was it AiG or was it CMI?
It was AiG.
Let's find
I'm
out.
pretty sure they have an article of things not to use, and these are one. And here we have this moron using them
All right.
on AiG channel.
We got the arguments to avoid from Answers in Genesis. This is them. Let's see if we can, let's see if we can find Ecostone. Oh, no. Stones? I don't know, Tdlane, I'm not seeing it on the list.
I could have sworn AiG had said not to use these. But give me a second.
Let's see. God created things to look old. Second law of thermodynamics. If we evolve from apes, why they're still apes. Evolution of the eye absurd, according to Darwin. Didn't a fishing boat find a dead plesiosaur? NASA found Joshua's missing day. Deathbed conversion, giant skeletons, women have more ribs than men, arguments Christians shouldn't use. Let's see if we can get Answers in Genesis. And then we'll just do Ecostones. Oh, come on. No, I'm not seeing much, so I'm just going to go ahead and say that they probably haven't.
Look at that animal that they carved.
Oh, Hovind loves the ecostones. He absolutely does.
What's it look like to you? Well, to me, it looks an awful lot like a triceratops. How would they know what this creature would have looked like unless they or their ancestors...
Your picture of a triceratops doesn't look that much like a triceratops, buddy. I mean, come on. You've got the wrong number of toes. The wrong number of them have claws. I mean, what are you doing?
Ancestors would have actually seen this creature. And then, this looks
great.
like an Indiana Jones movie. I mean, this is so cool. I could not believe this when the first time I seen this. In fact, I had a guy call me up and said, buddy, I just got back from this place. He says, we went in these ruins right here, and we found something very interesting inside these ruins. So let's walk inside this doorway right here and see what's inside this old temple that's in Cambodia. Well, we see a column, and you can see.
Yep, a column with a floral motif going all the way up, where all of the subjects of the insets have the floral motif continuing. Okay.
Different animals on this column. I'm going to point one of them out to you. So some of these animals are birds and deer and different types of critters that they have carved, that they knew about. But look at this creature right here that they carved. Okay, I'm going to blow it up for you so you can see it even more.
Oh, here we go. Explosion.
1, 2, 3, boing. There it is.
Oh.
Hey, what's that look like?
I triggered Vitalia's Alexa.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Apologies.
Okay, so we're probably going to just go with this real quick, and then we're going to end it because we're coming up on the 2 hours. He's going to say it's a Stegosaurus. Look, Stegosaurus don't have ears like this thing has. The floral pattern is just that. It's a floral pattern. I don't see a Thagomizer. There's no tail spikes. Stegosaurus had a long, thin neck with an armored underside. This thing has basically no neck. It's just not a Stegosaurus.
Like a Thagomizer would be something people would notice and put in their art of a Stegosaurus. They wouldn't make the head ridiculously huge because it's not. And they wouldn't draw... I'm not going to say they wouldn't because people did weird things at times. But it's unlikely they would put ears on it, seeing how external pinnae are basically just placental and marsupial mammals only.
There's actually some reason to think that triconodonts might have had external pinnae and that monotremes lost them secondarily.
Ooh, I did not know that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Not mammals for once.
Which actually would technically make it slightly bigger than crown mammal for where the trait appears. But anyway, yeah. Well, one person said it's a hippo. I would actually go with rhino. One of the problems with the hippo identification is that
it's very similar to the rhinoceros that live in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, and that location is
longer. They're boned.
That location is the big reason why hippo is probably not it, because there aren't really any hippos in Southeast Asia. But anyway, we are going to wrap it up. So let's see. Thursday. Hold on. What's up, Tdlane?
Dan, Creation Myths, just upload a new video, so go watch that.
Link that in the chat for me.
Yeah, it's in the chat now.
Okay. So after you're done here, go check out Dan Stern Cardinal, Dr. Dan's new video on his YouTube channel creation myths. Go hit like a whole bunch. I want to see him have at least 50 likes by the time that, in an hour from now. Anyway, we'll wrap things up here. So Thursday normally is an upload day. Instead, today is going to be a live stream. We're going to be doing it, I believe, around 3 Pacific. But don't quote me. I have to double check. It'll be scheduled. I'm going to be having a conversation with a very nice, at least nice seeming, old Earth creationist named Kane Wilson. He and I are going to be talking about, we'll start on some things we agree with about things like the age of the Earth, astronomy, geology, that kind of stuff. But then we're going to pretty quickly dive into biology and evolution and why he rejects it and what evidence he may or may not have, and we'll get a nice understanding of how he sees biology and evolution. Then Saturday, at the time I would normally go live for a live stream, we're going to have this week's video upload. So there's going to be a premiere on Saturday instead of Thursday. We're just swapping those days around because Kane couldn't do a Saturday stream. So that is what's happening on this channel. There's a decent chance that Saturday video will actually be things that aren't dinosaurs, about turtles. So we'll go and dig into some fossil turtles and look at the evolution of turtles and stuff like that. So there you go. And if it's not that, it'll probably just be the next Creationism is a Mega Catastrophe video. I also want to say that I believe the next update for the Speculative Evolution project may actually be the final update for Phase 1. And then there will be a Phase 2.
Phase 2.
Yeah, so when Phase 2 comes in, that means that people will be, again, able to submit organisms, but they will have to have evolved from something...
Dapper, we're on Phase 2.
Oh, yeah, Phase 2, sorry. Whatever, Phase... You know what? The next phase, whatever. We're gonna...
Our brain matter is significantly degraded during this.
Yeah, I mean, Buddy here may be stupid.
Made it through.
Oh, and next Tuesday, Vandalia 1998 will have RJ and Jackson on, so that'll be an interesting...
we'll watch that.
Yeah.
Buy the book.
Yep, actually, in case you guys want to know, Turtles was voted for by my patrons. So if you would like to, every once in a while, help me weed out ideas for which video to make, check out the Patreon. You get early access to most of my videos. You get your name in the credits for most things. You get all sorts of stuff. But anyway, that's it for me. I'm going to play the outro and talk to all you guys later. Thanks for watching,
Bye.
But before you go, I'd like to take a minute to say thank you to my patrons and channel members on YouTube. They help me make this channel possible, and without them, I couldn't keep going. Specifically, I want to thank my $20 and above patrons, Bent Hovend, Ian Chen, Sphincter of Doom, Chris Love, Henry Hutanen, and Bob Knob. If you'd like to join the channel or become a patron, links are in the description, and if that's not right for you, but you want some other way to help out, there's also an Amazon wishlist, as well as a Teespring store where you can get Dapper Dino merchandise. If none of that works for you, just liking and sharing this video really helps out. I'm the Dapper Dinosaur.